This video looks at the key issue for the biological approach, which is what are the implications for society if aggression is found to be caused by nature and not nurture. So just remember that nature is referring to inherited characteristics and abilities which are predetermined by our genes, whereas nurture expresses how the influence of our experiences through interactions with the physical and social environment will explain our behaviour. So both of those clips that you have just seen are examples of what we call impulse aggression, which is actions that have happened as a result of impulse. They're not premeditated actions, they've happened in the heat of the moment. So does that same impulsivity that creates successful footballers also create aggressive individuals who are ticking time bombs of aggression if placed in the wrong situation? It's widely accepted that aggression can have a biological cause, so we need to consider this when we're seeking to blame people who find themselves in a situation such as this, including Luis Suarez biting the opposing player, David Beckham kicking the player, and also one of the most famous examples of Zinedine Zidane in the World Cup final in 2006 headbutting another player. The question here is, should they be blamed? Aggression in humans may come from nature, and examples of this seen in sports like football, where players have made a split-second decision of how to act, leading to consequences within the game. Should they get red cards? Should they be punished for their behaviour? Now, aggression can also have a more sinister side, and it can start with a small fight, but it can then progress on to murder or killing somebody. If it's nurture, then people are able to make another decision. It's their choice. They've made a choice based on their environment and their situation. However, if it's nature, then the acceptance there is that the person had no choice, that they are acting biologically through forces that they can't control. And if we accept this view that it is nature, then should people be punished accordingly? Or should actually aggression start being treated like we would another disorder like depression? Now let's have a look at how we would explain this key issue, because don't forget your key issue question will always be separated into two parts, either a describe, which is what the newsreader would say, or explain, where we're using psychological research to explain the claims or the discussions that we've had. Now in this sense we can use evolution to make our first explanation. Now, impulsivity is useful as an ability to think and act quickly in order for us to avoid threats. Now, because of this, we've evolved self-restraint, which allows us to socialise and live with other people to control our impulsivity. Now, impulse control mechanism is controlled by the actions of the prefrontal cortex, which is seen as a highly evolved part of the brain. Now, Rain et al. Gives us evidence for this when he looked at violent behaviour and suggested that it was related to low levels of activity in the prefrontal cortex, thus suggesting that violence itself is caused by poor impulse control. Another explanation we can use here is the role of hormones. Now, high levels of testosterone have been linked with behaviour traits such as dominance, competitiveness and aggression. Now, we could apply all of these to male sports people, and perhaps some of the same hormones that makes them driven to compete in the sport also makes them prone to aggression. Another explanation can be the warrior gene, which is the MAOA gene. Now, it's called the warrior gene because of its links with aggressions and impulsive behaviour. Research shows that people with a version of this gene that shows low activity or a low expression of the gene may be more likely to react on provocation by showing aggression, whereas people with low expression but also who have high levels of testosterone are much more likely to be aggressive, and then even more so if they've suffered a poor upbringing as well. Now, if we start pulling this together and making conclusions here, if the evidence suggests that aggression is caused by nature and not by nurture, if a person's biology is found to be responsible for them being aggressive, then the question must be posed, can we really find them criminally responsible for their behaviour? If Luis Suarez couldn't control his impulse behaviour that day on the pitch, if it was a reaction to a perceived threat, then it would be seen to be unfair to punishing him. That suggests then that if aggression is part of our biological makeup and is therefore beyond our control, then maybe what we need to do is start focusing on how we would help these people and start viewing aggression as an illness. So a person could be identified before they show aggressive behaviour, and therefore allowing us to research and develop mechanisms to help us to predict aggressive behaviour and therefore be able to prevent it. If you're studying the A2 aspect of the course, that means if you're in year 13, then let's link some of this to issues and debates as well. The most important ones being down here. This view is very deterministic. It removes all aspects of free will in behaviour, and it suggests that we are predetermined to behave that way. It also completely ignores individual differences. Not everybody with high testosterone is aggressive, and not everybody responds the same way, and that must be taken into account.